It's Q live in St. John's. Would you please welcome to the stage, Alan Doyle.
Come on, let's start it right. Let's start it right. All together. Let's show them how it's done. Well, we'll rant and we'll roar like true Newfoundlanders. We'll rant and we'll roar on land below until we strike bottom inside of the farewell and adieu to you young maids of Alan, old Darren and Peresk, Foxhole and Bruley. For I'm bound for the westward to the wall with the hole in. I can't marry all or a chokey. I'll be all together. Well, we'll rant and we'll roar like true Newfoundlanders. We'll rant and we'll roar on deck and below until he strikes bottom inside the two sunkers. Went straight through the channel to Toslow we'll go. I'm a son of a sea cook, I'm a cook on a trader. I can dance, I can sing, and I can reef the main boom. And I can handle a jigger, and I cuts a fine figure whenever I get in a boat standing. All together, well, we'll rant and we'll roar like true Newfoundlanders. We'll rant and we'll roar on land below until we strike bottom inside. Went straight through the channel to Toslow we'll go. One more. Well, we'll rant and we'll roar like true Newfoundlanders. We'll rant and we'll roar on deck and below until we strikes bottom inside the two sunkers. Went straight through the channel to Toslow we'll go. Went straight through the channel to Toslow we'll go. That's the way to start it off, right there.
Alan Doyle, everybody, give him another round of applause.
It's nice to have you back, Tomboy.
It's nice to be back, you
Yeah.
know. It's nice to be back. I'm sad I'm not in my home community, the bustling outport of Count Heights, Newfoundland. But it is nice to be here. How are you doing? Nice to have you back, too. You were just gone to Toronto for how long?
I was away for almost 2 full months in a row, which is very unusual for me. I'm usually gone for 2 or 3 weeks in a row. Always going somewhere, always coming back. But this was an unusual stay. I was in Toronto for almost 2 full months.
Can you tell the people what you were doing?
I was doing a version, a Telltale Harbor, the musical that we played here. Yeah.
So, Telltale Harbor sold out to the gills, my understanding, in Toronto. Is that right?
Yeah, we started it there in like the last few days of September. And we were, if you look at the, this is true, if you look at the percentage for seats, we were 103%. I'm serious. They put standing room in the back of the Royal Alexander Theatre for the first time in over a decade. It was sold out to the doors every night.
For people who aren't as familiar with the story of Telltale Harbor, people here might recognize that story.
Yeah, but most people know it as a musical adaptation of the film that became The Grand Seduction, that was filmed in Trinity and stars Mark Critch and a few other people. And it's really about a small town that loses its fish plant and is in the running to get a replacement plant to save the town. But one big thing it needs to get in order to secure that opportunity is it needs to have a full-time resident doctor. So one of the foolish leaders of the town, played by yours truly, tries to convince the whole town that they can indeed convince this visiting doctor from London that small town Telltale Harbor is the place he should spend the rest of his life, and hijinks and lovely songs ensue.
I'm curious as to why it landed the way it did in Toronto and on the mainland. So for people who don't know, the show debuted in Charlottetown. I want to say maybe.
Well, the show debuted we sort of wrote it over the pandemic. Myself and Ed Rich and Adam and Bob from Adam from Charlottetown and Bob from Toronto, and we did it mostly during the pandemic. It debuted in 22 at the Charlottetown Festival, and then of course we did a tour of it here in Newfoundland and Labrador. We did all the arts and culture centers. Yeah, and we did like a 5 or 6 day sold out run right here at this theater in September or October of 2022. And then we reworked a bunch of the things for it, and we debuted it back again. We remounted it for Charlottetown this summer in 2025, and it rolled into the Royal Alex with the big mighty Mirvish, which is like the NHL for theater in Canada. I've come to learn, I don't know.
But you did better than the Leafs, which is good.
We did.
That's good. Just two Habs fans, we're okay. What I'm curious about is that seems like such a local story, at least an Atlantic Canadian story. A fish plant going down, the challenges of getting a family doctor in a community. Did you find that there was any difference in how people in Atlantic Canada, how people in Newfoundland received the show, and how people in Toronto received the show?
Well, in Atlantic Canada, people are so familiar with that story. And I don't mean the movie itself, but we're all so familiar with, I mean, I grew up in Petty Harbour, right? Like we're in 1990, yeah, thank you very much.
Love that, by the way.
I expected it and hoped for that.
I heard someone from Maddox Cove start booing, by the way.
That's right. No, but I was born in 1969, and of course, so I became an adult, and Great Big Sea just started when the cod moratorium hit Petty Harbour, just like it hit everywhere else in Newfoundland and Labrador, and all these towns, like Petty Harbour, had to sort of redefine what we were doing, you know? And so even as a very young adult, I was faced with that reality, and our town was. And I think that sort of coastal survivalist mentality is very common out here. We're used to it. So that resulted in one kind of show. But of course in Toronto and perhaps West or wherever, they're not as used to that story, so it was a little bit more sort of fantastical for them. And a little bit, which I think probably made for a funnier night. I know, I'm serious. Like, I'm sure, like, it's the story of my life, you know, especially with the Great Big Sea lads, you know, playing sea shanties in Telluride, Colorado, you know, and wondering how in God's name this is going to go over. Yet it does. Mm-hmm. And so here we are, on the same stage that had Hamilton on it, and, Phantom of the Opera, I'm there winking and singing a song about Petty Harbour. It's called Telltale Harbour in the show, but it's basically about Petty Harbour. No better spot for it, if you don't mind me saying.
How did you find writing the music? When I went to see the show, I was struck by, it was very natural that you wrote these very big musical theater songs. That is normally a discipline that belongs to one sort of musician, and the kind of person who can write big pub songs that everyone can sing along with is another kind of musician. How did you find sort of stepping between those two worlds?
Very challenging.
Yeah?
It was probably the hardest I've ever had to work on something, and I did it so happily. But I must say, as new as I was to it, the other musician in the creative team was a guy named Bob Foster, who you know, and he's the chief musical theater person in the country of Canada. So under his guidance and friendship, we got it done, and people loved it. It was a great night out, and we look forward to doing it again.
You're about to go out on tour, a big, long run, not long from now, right?
Still in the game. Can't believe it. Yeah, we...
unlike the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah. I'm sorry. Ron McLean's going to kill me.
Well, having spent my time in Toronto, if I could tell you, I figured out really quickly two ways to upset everyone in Toronto, right? The first one is an obvious one. Walk up to someone in Toronto and tell them that their hockey team's pretty good.
Yeah.
They are beside, and then the big one, of course, is tell them that all your experiences in the last 5 or 6 weeks in Toronto on public transit have been awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys, the subway works. I don't know what to tell you. I got everywhere I wanted to go. It just works. I'm sorry.
You're going back out. You still love the road. How long have you been out on the road now in your life?
I don't know. Someone asked me, like a kid asked me at a gig, I said, how many concerts have you done in your lifetime? And I said, buddy, I don't know.
It's 20 years of Great Big Sea, 10 years of Alan solo.
Yeah.
And then before that?
Yeah, before that was when we were doing all the gigs, because we played 5 or 6, different places downtown. And I don't know, I mean...
What keeps you going?
Well, I still love it, right? I still love getting on stage, and I still love playing music, and I still love traveling, and that I was that way when I was 14 in Petty Harbour, and I've seen no reason to stop. I still love doing it, and I still get to play with a great gang, and the audiences are still showing up. I mean, we announced the new tour, and we're starting right here in St. John's, by the way, and I'm looking forward to that. The Already Dancing tour starts, and the response was so big that we added a second night in St. John's. We're doing 2 nights at Massey Hall in Toronto and onwards, and so yeah, it's I feel really lucky, and I'm not kidding. I feel really lucky to still be in the game at all. Like, that's enough for me, you know. But to still have a little bit of, it feels like it's still growing, you know. Like, and that's incredible, you know, because here I am in my mid-30s, and it's.
You look great, by the way. You look great.
Thank you.
You look great. You look great. You look great. The last thing, you also have a book out this month. You just released a book called The Smiling Land about your journeys around Newfoundland and Labrador. And in it, you talk about how you're, even though you're on the road all the time, how even though it may be a lot more convenient, I saw this line in the book, it may have been a lot more convenient for your touring life to move away. You have never kept a home anywhere but here in Newfoundland and Labrador. How come?
Well, why would you? The funniest thing about that whole thing to me is that, you know, all the good fortune in my life, you know, like traveling and got to travel and play music and, you know, under a couple of awesome umbrellas, 3 or 4 really, and then doing a bit of film and television stuff and, you know, theater or whatever. And I've gotten to go to some of the greatest cities in the world, you know, and not one time has it ever occurred to me to move to one of them and not live in St. John's. Like, it's never even crossed my mind. Like, how weird that it would be. And one of the things, the whole Smiling Land book that I just released is kind of an attempt to answer that question. It's like, you know, what is it about a place that makes you love it so much, you know? And, you know, I mean, Mom's bread is good.
Yeah, and Athens does not have the Village Mall. But
That
still,
right.
you know. Alan,
Food court, the Athens
does not have
the
hot
court.
shop at the food court at the Village Mall. I'm just going to point that out. And I think I can speak for everybody here that everyone's so glad you never left, but also an unbelievable amount of pride in both in you and the ambassadorship you've done for this province. And thank you so much for coming out today. Alan Doyle, everybody. Would you please put your hands together for Rick Mercer?
Thank you so much for that. That was so lovely. It's great to be here. This is amazing. What a great crowd. What a great idea. This is fantastic.
I know, it's wild. We should do it every week. What do you remember? We're here at the Arts and Culture Center. What was your first time playing the Arts and Culture Center?
Well, one of my first memories of the Arts and Culture Center was we were brought here by school. So what do we got, 1,100 people, I think? And so I was probably 7 years of age, and other schools were here as well. So it was 1,100 7-year-olds. And I remember I was in the middle with a buddy of mine, and in those days, I don't know if it's now, but there were like 1,000 light bulbs in the ceiling. Yeah. So my buddy and I, we started shaking our heads like crazy, shaking our heads, and it was just a wild effect. And then this teacher is on the aisle and starts going, boys, stop shaking your head. Stop shaking your heads. And I realize it's a teacher, but it's not a teacher from our school. So we're good to go. So we keep shaking our heads, shaking, madly shaking. And then this teacher became so incensed, he walked up on the center stage and he said, if one more child looks up at these lights and shakes their head. And then I had the glorious experience of watching 1,100 7-year-olds look up and start shaking their heads.
Did you play, because when you did Show Me the Button, I'll Push It, Charles Lynch Must Die, the first big show that sort of made you when you were still, I think, in high school, right?
I wasn't in high school.
You were still very young, right?
I was a kid. I was 20.
20 years old.
And I did this show called Show Me the Button, I'll Push It, or Charles Lynch Must Die. And it was about the Meech Lake Accord, of all things.
Like all 20-year-olds were doing at the time.
Yeah.
No 20-year-olds could stay away from the Meech Lake Accord.
And the show did very well at the LSPU Hall.
Was anyone there? Anyone remember it? Anyone there? Yeah.
It was. I mean, it was life-changing for me. We sold out the Ellis Pugh Hall for 2 weeks, which the Ellis Pugh Hall is a smaller theater in downtown St. John's. At that time, 160 seats, I think. And then we wanted to hold over, which was unheard of, past 2 weeks. And it wasn't available, it was rented. And then Gerald, my partner, who was the producer of the show, said, let's take our money and rent the Arts and Culture Center. And I was like, what do you think I am, Ravine? Like, the Arts and Culture Center? And so we rented the place, and it was like $1,500. It wasn't cheap. And we came up here, and we did 2 nights, and we sold them out, and it was the biggest thrill of my life. And honestly, I just came back with the tour that I finished, and walking out on stage to a full house just, a couple of weeks ago, and that would have been like 29 years later or something. It was, the thrill was exactly the same. It was incredible.
I heard a story from some of the folks backstage that you, on the night you were sold out, you were in the middle of the theater with the lights on doing this.
Yeah.
I remember hearing all about it. Let's talk a little bit about the tour. So Stand Up for Canada, I want to say the most successful comedy tour I've heard of in Canada in decades. Tickets sold out all over the country, and a really important show at this moment, even though I know that doing things for the importance is not necessarily what you like to acknowledge in yourself, but I do think it was a very important show. Talk to me a little bit about that title, Stand Up for Canada, and what you wanted to do.
Well, Gerald, the same guy who said, let's rent the Arts and Culture Center, it was his title. He's still around coming up with the great ideas. So he's the one who said, let's call it Stand Up for Canada, which of course is a pun, it's a play on words because it was a stand-up comedy show. But it was very much of the times. And, my act has never changed. I chose a long time ago that I was going to take a celebratory lane. And in comedy, a lot of great comedy, a lot of brilliant comedy, some of the best comedy is about tearing down. But I decided, when I got the Mercer report, that we were going to take a celebratory lane, and that hasn't changed. And I think that there was a real desire for Canadians to come together to celebrate, not to dunk on the States, because they're doing that themselves, quite frankly, but to celebrate the country. And that was the vibe of the show. And yeah, we sold 40,000 tickets out of the gate. Like, it was a tremendous experience. I loved every minute of it.
But I hear that a former Canadian Prime Minister helped you out with the show.
Well, we were just having a meeting, one of those meetings where you're just going through the housekeeping of how the show is going to work and what flights you're going to be on. And then one of the tour managers said, oh, by the way, we'll have 2 Voice of God announcements. And in showbiz parlance, Voice of God announcements means the voice that comes on in a theater that says, please take your seats. And also, please put your cell phones away, that kind of stuff. It's called the Voice of God. And they said, we'll just get a standard Voice of God performer. And as soon as they said Voice of God, I said, Jean Chrétien. I want the most recognizable voice, the most Canadian voice. So at the beginning of the stand-up for the show, everyone would be sitting in the crowd like you were, and then an announcement would come on, and it would say, hello, this is Jean Chrétien, former Prime Minister of Canada. 3 back-to-back majorities, but I digress. He said, please put your cell phones away. Photography is not allowed. And he'd say, the show will start momentarily. Vive la Canada! And then we played. And then that rolled into fireworks from the Tragically Hip.
Oh, amazing.
And then he came back on and introduced me as the little guy from Middle Cove. And so already the crowd was like they were in such a good mood, and they just couldn't get over it. Like, it's so absurd that Jean Chrétien is telling you to turn your cell phone off. So that was a great thrill.
How was the experience? I mean, you've been touring this country for an awful long time. Since, like I said, you were in your 20s. You took Show Me the Button and I'll Push It to the National Arts Center. You toured it around the country. You've been on the road for a very long time. What did you find the biggest difference between touring in your 20s and touring now?
Well, Now I'm doing pure stand-up, which I never did.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm loving it. But I tell you one difference from touring now than in my 20s. Now I wear hearing aids. And I started out as an idiot child. Then I became a boy wonder. Then I became an angry young man. Now I'm a guy with gray hair who does stand-up and wears hearing aids. But the new hearing aids are like, they're totally flippy. Like they do so much. So they do everything that your phone does, except it's inside your head.
Like,
So,
hold on, you're answering what? What?
Oh, like if I'm in Toronto and someone rings the doorbell at my house in St. John's, ding dong in my head. And then I tap my head twice like that. And then I go, hello, how can I help you? And the guy goes, oh, it's an Amazon delivery. And I'm like, oh, I'm just getting out of the shower. Can you put it behind the bush there? And he goes, okay, thank you. But no one ever knows what I'm, like who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm on stage in Vancouver. It's like 1,200 people. I'm in the middle of this rant. I'm doing my stand-up and I'm talking about whether or not Canada should buy the $35 billion American fighter jets. And suddenly, bring, bring, the phone starts ringing in my head. And I'm like, no, we're not gonna buy these fighter jets. And then I try to hang up by tapping twice on the side of my head, but I only tap once. And then I get a robot voice saying, this is the Canadian Revenue Agency. We have issued a warrant for your arrest. And I'm like saying, you're like, no, and we can buy French fighter jets. And we can buy, Sweden makes a fighter jet. They're a bitch to put together, but once they're assembled, they're great. And then I just keep furiously tapping. And then it finally hangs up, but I was thinking the audience must think, well, he really wants us to buy the Swedish fighter jet.
Back in your head.
Slapping.
I think that it was not that long ago. I mean, as much as it was Stand Up for Canada and as much as you were very clear that you did not want to dunk on or roast the United States, it has been hard to think about changing perceptions of Canada from America and Americans. And I was thinking a lot, knowing that you were coming on today, about talking to Americans, which you did years and years ago on 20 Minutes on the Rick Mercer Report. Does this current political moment we're in make you reflect differently on that work, make you remember things differently about the work that you did back then?
Well, talking to Americans, for starters, was the best job I ever had. Also the easiest. But I loved it because every week I would visit a different state, and I love America, and I always loved America, and Canadians, by and large, love America. And the interesting thing about that experience was I would be standing there on the street in any state, and I went to 30 of them or something, and it was the same thing every time. I would be standing there, I was a young man in a suit, and I had the big news camera on the shoulder of a news cameraman looking guy, and a director with me. There was 3 of us, and I would say, excuse me, and whoever was walking by would assume that I was like the local news, the NBC affiliate.
Yeah.
And they would go, nope. They had no interest. They'd put up their hand, nope. And I'd say, do you have a minute for Canada? And then they'd stop and say, Canada, of course. Because they had incredible goodwill towards us.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I would do the act with them. And I admit it was basically one joke over and over again. But why it worked was, it was always pointing out that Americans, and this is in their nature, and for a lot of different reasons, will believe anything about Canada. I mean, I had a governor believe our parliament was made out of ice and melting. I had a governor believe that, we had a 22-hour clock, and we were thinking of moving to 24. I mean, it went on and on and on. But the thing is now, I told them silly things about Canada, but now there are serious forces telling Americans that Canada is a bad partner, Canada's a bad neighbor, Canada's a bad trading partner, Canada is where all the guns in America are coming from, that's where the fentanyl's coming from, all the drugs. So I think it's a very different view of Canada right now. If you were standing on the street and you said, got a question from Canada, I think you would get a very different reaction than when I was doing it.
Would you do it now? Would you ever do it again like that?
No. That would involve going there. Yeah. No. I've gone through, like, since I did that, and again, I was a kid when I did that, I've gone through probably like 7 people that ran the CBC, and every time a new person comes in and takes over the CBC, I get a call and they go, Rick, I've got this idea. It's kind of out of the box. How about you bring back talking to, wait for it, Americans? And no, I did it, and I'm happy that it exists the way it did, and it certainly launched me. And no.
What strikes me is that the story is, if you think about the story, what I'm working on here is at the beginning of our conversation, you were talking about the thing that first brought you to the Arts and Culture Center on the stage. And it was Show Me the Button and I'll Push It, or Charles Lynch Must Die. It was critical of the Meech Lake Accords, and it was critical of Newfoundland's participation or treatment or respect within the Meech Lake Accords. And now you are going back to the Arts and Culture Center. You just did a show here, sold out just the other day. Stand up for Canada, proud to be part of Canada, Canadians. How does it feel doing these kind of shows here now? What is it like to bring, Newfoundland has never had an easy relationship with Canada all the way up. How does it feel doing a show like that here back home in Newfoundland?
Well, I mean, as you say, Newfoundland has always had not a difficult relationship with Canada, but it's a little different because, you know, we joined in 1949. So my generation and your generation, all of our parents are first-generation Canadians,
yeah.
And it's just very fresh. And of course, there's been lots of people who feel like it wasn't a very good deal. And when I was a young man, I was very much a Newfoundland nationalist, and now I'm very much a Canadian nationalist. And at that time, I was very much caught up in grievances that Newfoundland had with Canada. But now, when I look around the country and I see, you know, Quebec, who's always talking about grievances they have with Canada, Western Canada talking about grievances they have with Canada, Newfoundland certainly talks about grievances that we've had with Canada, Saskatchewan does it. I'm kind of at the point like, can everyone shut up about the grievances that they have with Canada right now? And we have to celebrate what we have, and we have to acknowledge that we're a great country, and we're not perfect, but that's the lane I'm taking.
You've been on the road for a while. What do you look forward to the most when you're back home in St. John's?
You know, I think if the definition of lucky is if you have a place that speaks to you, like speaks to your heart and your soul, and that's Newfoundland and Labrador for me.
That's the Village Mall for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Village Mall in Newfoundland and Labrador. For me, like I have a cabin here, right? And it's like absurd. I've become a gentleman gardener. Like I have, you know, I'll pop by tomorrow with potatoes and carrots and garlic and onions. I got it all, right, that I grew this year. So I have a cabin by the ocean, which is my favorite place to be. And, you know, I love to walk the Rennie's Mill Trail in St. John's and pop up to Leo's for a fish and chips.
Come on.
For the radio audience, that's not a person, that's a place. Leo.
Yeah. It is, thank you so much for doing this tonight, man. This means a lot to me that you came out to do this show tonight.
Thank you.
I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And we're all just so proud of you. We're all just such big fans of you. Thanks for everything you've ever done for this province, and thank you so much. Rick Mercer, everybody.
Thank
Wasn't
you,
that fantastic?
Tom Power.
From Nunatsiavut and Corner Brook, Deantha Edmunds.
What shapes us, blood or land or words? Wherever we journey, we want to be heard. How will you be remembered by what is left behind? When you think of me, what will come to mind? Look within yourself and trust that you will find, when you walk in truth, faith lachutit. Ignite that gentle inner fire. Let it rise like voices in a choir. Flames dancing bright and strong, keeping time with your life song. Na yumilawit, sivunitinit, type somani kisiani, nafatau lachutit. How will you be
I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about the song that we just heard. And I think that I can speak for everybody in the audience when we're wondering a little bit about that last line that sort of hung and caught us all off guard. How will you be remembered? Talk to me a little bit about that song and about that line.
This song actually came to me really quickly. I don't think I originally even planned to have this certain number of songs on the album Connections a few years ago. And then just one day, I was thinking, and these words just poured out of me, and the song came to me like that, and that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
But I felt like I tapped into something that I had been feeling a lot, especially since the loss of my father. And I thought, how will you be remembered? And don't we all want to be remembered for the love that we gave, the love that we have for ourselves and extend to those in our lives, in our circles, and beyond that, out into the world. And I mean, to me, it really just comes down to that. That's what we're here to do, to connect and to feel that love and to share that. So that's why the song begins and ends with throat singing. The song that the particular throat song that they're doing is called the Love Song. And so it's the beginning and end of everything.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Tell me, can you tell me a little bit about your dad? What was your dad's name?
Albert Edmunds, and he was from Hopedale in Nunatsiavut, the north coast of Labrador. And he is dearly missed, and he was all love. He was all love. My mother is a beautiful blonde Irish Newfoundlander who is having her 80th birthday very soon, and they raised my siblings and I in a home full of love and music and pride in who we are and where we come from and what we put out into the world.
The last time we spoke on Q, it was interesting to hear the throat singing be part of that composition, because I'm trying to make sure I find the right words here. You and I talked about, I want to say it's like a slight distance from some of the traditions, or some of the slight distance you might have felt from some Inuit traditions, in particular throat singing. And you were telling me that you, at that point, were going to learn it, or you were starting to learn it. I wonder if you could tell me like how it's going, and how has that been for you emotionally to reconnect there?
That's a great question, and thank you so much for asking that. So during the pandemic, my daughter Annabelle and I did some throat singing workshops that the Inuit Art Foundation offered for Inuit all across Canada, of course. And we've been practicing a bit here and there, and we've performed live just a couple of times. Yeah. The Love Song is actually what we have shared before, and it is. It's difficult to put into words. When I sing in Inuktitut, in the classical style, I feel more grounded than when I sing in any other language. And when I throat sing and use my breath and my voice in a different way, it's like connecting to another part of myself that I didn't realize was missing. So it's something I'm really grateful for, and something I talk about a lot in my work, how the breath is the voice, and that is coming right from our core. I always tell students and youth that I am fortunate enough to mentor that your voice is like a fingerprint, and so the way we use it is so important and vital. The words we choose when we speak to ourselves, the words we choose when we speak to others, and what messages we send out through our voice. And it's such a beautiful emotional release. Because when we sing, we are literally changing the vibrations in the space that we're in. And to me, that is just, it's so powerful.
I want to break down this year that I just mentioned when I was introducing you. So on July 1st, you were invested as a member of the Order of Canada. You won a Juno for Classical Composition of the Year for your original song cycle, Angma Lusika, with the Newfoundland Symphony Orchestra, Symphonia, conducted by Newfoundland's own Mark Fewer.
Yes.
You received an honorary doctorate of music from Acadia University. You won Indigenous Artist of the Year at the East Coast Music Awards. What a year.
Yes, it has been, thank you. It has been incredible, and
yeah,
I don't think I have processed any of it because I just keep moving on to the next things that are coming.
We can take a couple of minutes now and just be quiet so you can process it if you want, we can do it.
A moment of quiet?
Yeah,
What is that?
I know. What has that meant to you? I mean, I not to make you process it in front of me, but that's quite a year, Deantha,
It is very humbling and validating as well, because Indigenous classical singers are few and far between. We are getting more and more, and there's a wonderful singing community out there. But to me, because I'm now composing as well as singing, it means so much to be recognized for that, because I feel like my voice is being heard. And I'm grateful every single day to be able to do what I do, whether it's writing or composing or performing, acting. And here's a nice little chance for me to say that I enjoy doing some background acting on some of the shows that that have been discussed.
Have you been on St. Pierre?
I have.
No way. Really?
Yep. So,
who did you play? What was your role? What were you?
Well, you haven't seen me yet, and you may not see me.
Right.
You may not see me
Deep
at all.
background acting, they call that. Yeah.
Plainclothes officer.
Plainclothes officer? You could be one right now, and I'd have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
The last time we spoke, we talked about how the history of classical music, you mentioned that Indigenous classical musicians are few and far in between, but growing. But you talked about how the history of classical music, there is a history of classical music that is unique to the Inuit of Nunatsiavut. You are called, as I referred to you, the first professional classical singer, but you have pointed out that classical music sung by Inuit in Inuktitut goes back centuries. Yeah.
Yes, and thank you for giving me the chance to talk about this, because it's something I'm very proud of, and something that I still can't believe is in my ancestry and in my genes.
Talk to us a little bit about it.
Because I became a classical singer simply because it was my passion, and singing has always felt like I'm being my truest Deantha. So for those of you who know me from childhood, and you know that I talk too much and I sing all the time, you understand exactly what I mean. But to find out in my 30s that Inuit in Nunatsiavut were singing Mozart and Bach and Haydn, these famous European classical composers, Inuit in Nunatsiavut were singing this music in Inuktitut and playing stringed instruments and brass instruments, singing in 4-part choral harmonies with soloists. And this music became something very unique to Nunatsiavut. This is something not a lot of people are aware of and something I take great pride in sharing wherever I can. Because not only did the Inuit learn how to read and sing and perform and play this music, but they really did make it into something that belongs to them. They changed little bits here and there, rhythms or notes, and it's really something so remarkable to know that, 200 years ago there was an Inuit composer writing out the parts for this grand, sacred European church music, and in Inuktitut.
I think what's so clear to me when you talk about that is that, I was referring to you as such a groundbreaking musician, such a groundbreaking figure for music in Canada, but it's also that beautiful thing where you're both a groundbreaking musician and also a link in a long chain. And I think it's such an incredible story, and I thank you so much for the performance. And again, we're all just so proud of you here in Newfoundland and Labrador. One more time for the great Deantha Edmunds. Would you please welcome to the stage, Shanneyganock.
I'm gonna live until I die. I'm not the type to hang my head and cry. I may drink a couple of beer, I might get a little high. I'm gonna live until I die. Wasn't long after I was born that I first had red meat, and chicken wings and greasy things were such a weekly treat. Now I'm told the food I love is not the best for me. Guess we'll have to wait it out and see. I'm gonna live until I die. I'm not the type to hang my head and cry. I may drink a couple of beer, I might get a little high. I'm gonna live until I die. I used to have a few beer every day, but now they say it's not the proper way. I'll hide away and do my thing, my solitude I'll keep. If I can only have 2 beers a week. I'm gonna live until I die. I'm not the type to hang my head and cry. I may drink a couple of beer, I might get a little high. I'm gonna live until I die. Don't get me wrong, I know the smoke's no good. It's probably time to give them up, I guess I probably should. But the price it keeps on climbing, it's almost at the max. Guess we pay our way with all that tax. I'm gonna live until I die. I'm not the type to hang my head and cry. I may drink a couple of beer, I might get a little high. I'm gonna live until I die. I know they are bad habits, this I plainly see. But remember, it's the government that provides it all to me. It's probably true what they recommend and say. It's my own life and I'll live it my own way. I haven't got the palate for just water and green salad, so I'm gonna live until I die. I'm gonna live until I die. I'm not the type to hang my head and cry. I may drink a couple of beer, I might get a little high. I'm gonna live until I die. I'm gonna live until I die. I'm not the type to hang my head and cry. I may drink a couple of beer, I might get a little high. I'm gonna live until I die.
That is Shanneyganock. And Chris Andrews joins me here That was beautiful, man. That was lovely to hear you. I love that. Tell me a little bit about that song.
That's a song we were playing in Fort McMurray, and it was we were still in winter here, and it was spring up there, so it was a nice sunny day, and I was sitting outside the venue, and this guy came up to me and said, "I'm going to see your show tonight. Just back from the doctor." He said, "I got to quit smoking and drinking. I got to watch what I eat, but I don't care. I'm going to live till I die." I said, "That's a good song there." Yeah.
Obviously, you and the band have been on our minds a lot over the past few months since the sad, sudden passing of your bandmate and good friend, Mark Hiscock. But I want to start by talking a little bit about how the band got together. I mean, I've known you for a long time, man, and I've only heard this story, but I've never heard it from you, is that at Aaron's Pub, Ralph O'Brien double booked you and Mark, and you guys decided, can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a true story. Of course, I knew who Mark was. Back then, well, everyone knows who Mark is and was. He was on, Skipper and Company and Eyes to Buy and everything. Everybody knew Mark. So we were playing at Aaron's Pub. We were teenagers. And instead of sending one of us, Ralph had double booked us. Instead of sending one of us home, he said, "Why don't you guys get up and play together?" And 31 years later, here we are. Yep.
What was it about Mark? What was it about Mark as a person and a player that you knew after that performance, like this is something we need to do for real?
Well, at the time, he was the only accordion player I knew of. Maybe Bob Hallett was similar. Stood up, played, and sang.
Yeah.
There was only two of them at the top of my mind that did that.
Yeah.
And we were so different, because Mark liked the Newfoundland country, the old Newfoundland, and I was more into the Ryan's Fancy and Sons of Aaron, but when you put it together, it seemed to really work. People seemed to enjoy it, and he was a really nice guy, too.
Talk more about that. It was sort of two separate styles kind of coming together that made Shanneyganock, right?
100%. We couldn't sing harmony, but it sounded like harmony. Which was pretty tricky. But, it was a blend of two different sounds of, sort of our version of Newfoundland traditional music, and I certainly admired him and loved every minute that I played with him.
There is the success and dedication that people have towards this band is a rare thing. When you think about, there's a world in which people listening to this across Canada right now. This might be an introduction to the band. Some people may not be as familiar with them, but you go to halls all around Newfoundland and Labrador, rammed. You go all around Alberta, especially when I ran India and asked you to do the show. It was on you were flying back from Alberta. Halls out there, Fort McMurray, Grand Prairie, rammed. I know it's a weird question for maybe you to answer, but do you have any idea why Shanneyganock took off and it attracted such a fervent audience the way it did?
Well, part of it's been around forever. But I think it was just a fun time. We never went out trying to blow anybody's minds musically. It was, we're going to go out, we're going to have a real fun, good time dancing and singing. And
did you have conversations about, this is what we want the band to be, this is what we're going to do here?
No, not really.
Right.
Until young Justin came in to fill the void of Mark, we never had a set list for 30 years. There must have been moments where you went, "Oh wow, this is really happening here. This is getting bigger than I could have expected." Yes, 100%. And when we first started, the goal was to fill Aaron's Pub, which was like 80 people.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it was
I'm still trying to do that, by the way. I'm still trying to
don't be so silly.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
And then it was, the next stage was, you played at the Blarney Stone or your O'Reilly's. And then all of a sudden, we started playing the Arts and Culture Centre or the George Street Festival. And then it grew and grew. And people, it's sort of, 3 generations of fans because, it's, it was like when we first started, a lot of the people, their grandchildren come see us play now, which is, But I love how when we look out in the audience, there's so many young people out there. It's all ages, and everybody's singing along and having a good time, and that makes us feel good.
There's not many bands that you and your nan can go to see together.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
Not that many of that.
And have a great time.
There's not. So I wanted to ask you about this as much as you want to talk about it. So I hosted the East Coast Music Awards this year in St. John's. You guys were already planned to be the opening act. You were going to kick off the whole show. I got a call that afternoon that said that, tragically, suddenly, Mark Hiscock had died, and that Shanny was still going to play. So can you talk to me a little bit about that day, about the decision, what led to it? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, after Mark had his fall, it was a couple of days before he passed away, and I had been talking to him, and he, pure Mark was tough as nails. He really was. And he said, "I'll be ready for the ECMAs." And I was like, "Okay, as long as you're sure, and then what happened, that happened. Yeah. And we had a chat, and, we always sort of, in the band, had this set of rules about how you keep going forward. And, we talked about it before. It wasn't something we hadn't talked about. And the decision was the best way we could honor our friend and our bandmate was to go up and play as hard as we could that night.
It was something you had talked about beforehand? It was something that, yeah. It was something that you had talked about beforehand, that if something happened to one of you, that you would...
Keep her going, yeah.
What do you remember about the performance that night?
Not much.
Yeah.
No, not much. We were on stage about 4 minutes, and maybe we were in the stadium in about 5 minutes. I went and picked up everybody, and we all jumped in my Suburban, Bud and the guys, and we went down, we sang, and we had a brief chat with yourself and a couple other friends, but we didn't stick around very long. We were... it wasn't easy, but we know that's what he would have wanted. Yeah. And there's no doubt his accordion was on stage with us that night, but I think he was too. Yeah.
I hope you got to feel, it was an amazing thing to fly in from Toronto that day and turn on VOCM and hear a province-wide call-in show, Morning a Musician. And the amount of love and support that came towards the band in that moment, were you able to feel that? Were you able to take that?
Oh, yes. Mark was such a nice guy. He was a gentle guy, too.
Yeah,
and he was,
man.
He was friendly to everybody. And, what do you at? That was Mark, I said, "Who's that, Mark?" "I don't know."
Yeah.
All right. But he spoke to everybody.
Yeah.
He talked, he loved the water. He loved Newfoundland and Labrador. He loved the accordion, Besides his wife and family, the water and the accordion were his two other loves,
So you felt that from across the province?
Oh, did we ever.
Yeah.
And the outreach, the people that reached out and how the province and beyond reacted and spoke of them and mourned them was amazing.
How has it been, Shanny, continuing on?
It's different.
Yeah, I bet.
And, after 31 years and thousands of shows, I still look over and he's not there.
Yeah.
And like I said, we didn't have a set list. I didn't need to tell him. He knew what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And I knew what he was going to do.
Yeah.
But it's Shanny to us was something. It's a fun brand that continued. Like I said, we talked about it. Something that happened to me or something that happened to him or whatever. Keep it rolling.
Keep it going.
And the band's 31 years old. Now we got guys in the band like are 30.
Bleak.
So I say to them all the time, you can have like the Shanneyganock experience.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's an absolutely beautiful thing that you kept the band going. I think it's a beautiful thing in a way to honor your friend and continue to make unbelievable music. And thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us about it.
My pleasure, Tom.
Chris Andrews, everybody, and Shanneyganock. Please give a warm welcome to Trent McClellan.
Oh my God, for me? Come on! I wasn't even on the poster, people! I was just walking by here. I was going to get a Big Mary. And they were like, "Man, you want to pop in and do 5 minutes, sit on the couch, talk to Tom? My food will get cold, but that's all right. Okay, I'll stick around." Next thing you know, I'm on Newfoundland Got Talent. Wicked, awesome. By the way, we're passing a scribbler around from the back. You can sign up. You can get on tonight too if you want to. There's only a couple talents left. We need someone who can swallow fire. You can do that. or baked bread. That's the other one we need. And if you can do both, you'll win this here tonight. You will walk away with the second-hand car and the bus pass. Isn't that the prize? Night's up for whoever wins this contest. By the way, if you're listening to this up on the mainland later on, it's called a scribbler. In Newfoundland, Labrador is a Hilroy scribbler. Do you understand? It ain't no exercise book. What are you recording exercises in it, are you? Page 1, 10 push-ups. Page 2, 5 sit-ups. Joanne, I'm going to the gym. Where's my exercise book? I'd like to document my exercises. Everyone in Newfoundland knows it's a scribbler. You scribble in it. That's why it's called a scribbler. You play scat, keep the score in the scribbler. That's what you do. Play Scrabble, keep the score in the scribbler. That's what you do. Scribbler! If I ever have a kid, that's what I'm gonna name him, Scribbler. Scribbler, your supper's ready! And there's a big story no one's talking about. I'm amazed that no one has talked about it yet. I remember during the lockdowns, we were all savage to get out. Remember, you were stuck in the house? You were savage. You just wanted to get out and look at other people other than the person you live with. Remember that? You were tired of looking at their face. You wanted someone else to make a meal for you, remember? You were dying to go to Swiss Chalet for a quarter chicken dinner or something. And the only way you were allowed in there is you have to give your name and your email and your phone number so they could do contact tracing. And someone was going to write that down in a what? In a scribbler. And you would have told them anything at that time to get into that Swiss Chalet. I was telling them secrets and everything. I didn't care. I was like, my neighbor Glenn, he smokes. His wife don't know about it. Write it down. Write it down in scribbler. Put it down. But here's the thing no one's talking about. Where's the scribblers? It all came and went. The scribblers were there. Names, phone numbers, emails. Scribblers just disappeared. Forget the Epstein files. Where are the scribblers? Who's in the scribblers? You understand? Because everybody in here has got a random text from someone going, hello? That's someone with the scribbler. And do I have to mention the Nigerian prince emails? All scribbler related. Scribbler gate. St. John, you've been great. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. You were awesome. Thank you.
Please put your hands together for Newfoundland and Labrador's Gravy and Terra Nova. Tara, a lot of fans might recognize you from Canada's Drag Race. You made us all very proud. How does your life change when you get on a show like that?
Well, like, what I always like to say to people is, like, listen, I came last. I was out the door really quick. I wasn't there for long. But, like, the thing is that Drag Race is a stepping stone, is an opportunity. You get there, and then it shows you doors to a neighborhood. Then it's your job to go around and knock on those doors and make opportunities. And it's hard to do that without that platform.
How was How was the knocking on those doors? How was coming back to Newfoundland and Labrador after being on Drag Race?
I mean, it was amazing. My
Yeah.
gosh, everybody goes up for anybody that's on reality TV here. Newfoundland is where the heart is, and they just want to cheer for you. They want to root for you. And then afterwards, I mean, I got to travel the world. Like, I get to travel the world. I get so many opportunities I would not have without that show.
Gravy, I know you and Tara are good friends. You also have a special connection with someone else who's on the show tonight.
Really? Oh! You guys, my dad is here, and his name is Mark Critch. I know. Nepo gravy. But the branding is great. And listen, I thought Newfoundlanders loved gravy more than anything. Apparently, they love a slightly fake version of my dad's childhood as well. So maybe you'll get to see my fake childhood too. Or maybe this is my fake childhood.
Does any of that come from growing up in the household that you grew up in?
I fear that it does. It was like a funeral, a wake, a birthday. There were jokes. jokes. It was always jokes. But I think it's also just really important to have somewhere that you can nurture that and to be nurtured. And he was putting Cirque du Soleil makeup on me, and my mom would be recording. Listen, I was in wigs and dresses for a while. So this is kind of like, it's all meant to be, I think.
How is, Tara, how is the drag scene? I've been away for a while. How is the drag scene in Newfoundland and Labrador now?
I mean, the drag scene is thriving. So, like, since the show, we had, like, the whole 3750 gate. So...
Can you give some context as to
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. So on the show, I was in a conversation with people, and it was asked, like, so how much do you guys make in Newfoundland per show? And it was $37.50 is how much we made at every show. And, we kind of spoke about that. The club didn't necessarily like that I spoke about that, but it was kind of just a push to do better because it's something that we all collectively as a community agreed upon. So yeah, that happened. The club kicked us out. We no longer perform there, but we perform everywhere else in the city. You can catch us. Exactly.
Gravy, same question to you. How is the drag scene here? How have you found the drag scene in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Well, I have not been on TV yet. Right. But I think Tara going on, there was always the looming fear of the fact that we made $37. And every time someone found out, they'd be like, oh, for the first number? And then hearing you talk about it in a group of people that really do drag a lot, it was interesting that our community, I feel like Newfoundland is very queer. Mummers are just drag queens, right? I mean, I wish I could cover my face with a pillowcase instead of doing this. But I think we were all very proud of Tara doing it. Now, was I sitting on the stage watching the episode at the bar she was talking about on the screen? Yes. But I think sometimes you just gotta call things out that are not right.
Yeah.
And it might be hard to get back on your feet, but we did it.
We've come back bigger and better, so.
And that was with the help of the entire community.
Last question, Tara. I wonder if you could just make a pitch right now, like for people who may have seen you tonight for the first time, haven't gone to a drag show in St. John's, were sort of blown away by what you just did. I wonder if you could give a pitch to, why come down, why come to the show?
I always say, come out because it's literally just queer joy. And it's not just for queer people. The thing that always happens at every single show is you'll see, a wife come out with her husband, and afterwards they're always blown away. They were like, this is the most entertaining night that I've ever been to. And it's not what I thought it was. Because you see a lot of things on the media, and it's all scary and big, and we're going to do all these crazy things. No, we are literally up on the stage lip-syncing girls. It is not that hard. It is not that scary. We are not gonna fight you. We just want your money. So
I think it's an amazing thing. I'm so happy you came on the show tonight. I'm so happy you're fighting this fight in Newfoundland and Labrador, and I'm so happy you're bringing this art form to us. Thank you both so much.
Thank you, Tom.
Spectacular job. Tara Nova and Gravy, everybody. Would you please welcome to the stage Gravy's dad, Mark Critch.
Sit down. No, please sit down, ladies and gentlemen. It's radio. They won't know. Sit down. Flowers. Thank you, Premier. Hi, Tom.
Mark, how are you? What goes through your mind? That must be a proud father moment right there.
Absolutely. When I see Will, as I first met them, come out in drag, one thought goes through my head, well, at least they're not a goalie. Because that would be more expensive. No, it's amazing. It's so wonderful. It's a great community, you know, it's really cool.
Gravy was so funny, man, like so funny just then.
Yeah, well, Will's always been hilarious, and it's just wonderful to see. Funny thing about this, so like, I'm watching Will/Gravy come out, and Will was born cleft lip and palate, and always had a lot of speech therapy and had a trouble speaking and speaking clearly.
Yeah.
And now they come out here, Arts and Culture Center stage, under radio, and kill it. And for me, it's like, well, best moments of my life. Because, yeah, you know, and just, you know, and it's so funny because, like, my other son, Jacob, is a musician.
Incredible songwriter, incredible musician.
My other son, Jacob, is a songwriter slash producer, musician guy. And he's got, like, hit songs in, like, a number 10 and number 3 song in Japan and a number 1 song in, like, Korea and stuff. It's very strange. And then Will is doing this stuff, you know? And when they were starting out, and I was like, they're like, oh, I want to be a musician, and I want to do drag. And I'm like, well, dentistry is a wonderful program, you know? And then they look at me and it's like, well, Dad, you followed your dreams, and all your friends like, you know, Rick Mercer and Alan Doyle and Alan Hocko and Tom Power, they've all followed their dreams. And I'm like, shag. I'm not going to the fancy old age home, you know? But, you know, I just want a 24-hour nurse, but they're following their dreams, and that's the thing, you know, if you have a passion inside, it's a great gift in life.
I want to talk a little bit about, I mean, it's a very strange thing to watch Gravy come out here and talk about their dad, and to know that you are currently playing your dad in the hit show Son of a Critch. Can we get a round of applause for that? What's interesting, and you and I have been talking a lot about this, is that a lot of people will know your dad from being on the radio here. Can you just do a little bit of your dad for us?
Late last night, early this morning, moose were struck on a Trans-Canada highway. The name of the moose has not yet been released, as investigation is still pending. The suspect vehicle is described as a brown and tan Chevette, in poor condition before the accident, and extremely poor condition after the accident. 2 youths were killed, 1 seriously. Mike Critch, the VOCM News Service.
He still got it. He got it.
What's interesting is I can hear the laugh of recognition from this audience, but you have seen audiences not just across Canada. It's become a massive hit on Netflix in the US, a massive hit on Netflix all around the world. People, I mean, we were talking about this with Alan with Telltale Harbor earlier. People who wouldn't know your dad, people wouldn't know what it's like to grow up in VOCM Valley, have really taken to the show. Why do you think that is?
That's a big lesson I learned from this, you know? Because I thought, surely to God, a show about an asthmatic youngster growing up in St. John's in the 80s. I'm like, okay, we got a season. We tricked him, you know? And I said, well, I'm just going to make this as real as possible. But it's connected with people all over, because you might not have grown up in St. John's, and you might not know what putting the arse back in the cat is, or whatever. But everyone's been in love. Everybody's had a crush on a girl or a boy who didn't like them. Everybody's felt like the outsider. And that's what connects. I get, because it's in the States now, I get these messages from, like, there's one Southern Baptist preacher who writes me, and he says, like, oh, I use some of the things in my sermons. And a lady, a grandmother, a Jewish grandmother in California wrote me and said, my grandson was being bullied, And then he said, I'm going to use the Mark method of trying to be funny. And now he has a girlfriend, and I'm going to write you. And I'm like, it didn't work for me, but good for Buddy.
You have a book coming out at the end of the month called Sorry Not Sorry, about things that Canadians can take pride in at a time like this. And I was thinking that you were the first to do a comedic, on-air interview with our current Prime Minister, Mark Carney.
Yes.
At a Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
And I texted you afterwards because typically when you do these things, they shut down the Tim Hortons. And I said, Mark, why were there so many people at the Tim Hortons where you were interviewing Mark Carney?
Because I'm bad at my job, Tom. So, like, Mark Carney's people were talking to the show people and blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, we can do it in Hamilton. And I'm like, okay, we gotta go to Hamilton. And we show up and we go to this Tim Hortons. And I picked Tim Hortons, talk to people at Tim Hortons. And then we go off and I'm doing something and we're gonna meet at a certain time. And then I get a message from the RCMP people who go to the Tim Hortons before the Prime Minister and they go, they don't know you're coming. And I'm like, oh, yes, they do, Jean-Claude. And I booted over to Tim Hortons, and I come up, and I'm like, what's on the go? And they're like, you can't come in here today. Today we do inventory. And I'm like, I know, but the Prime Minister's coming. And then Mounties, now they're pissed off. And then, so all this is going on, and then I call Tim Hortons, and Tim Hortons' head office doesn't know about it because sent an email earlier, but they didn't get it or whatever. And about half an hour later, this missus shows up in, like, you know, like, it was a Tim Hortons coat that's like for a sporty thing. Like, it's a little sporty jacket says Tim Hortons. And she kicks open the door and she's like, is this really happening? Is the Prime Minister coming here now to do an interview with you in this Tim Hortons? I'm like, yes. And she barges up to Mrs. and she goes, what's going on? She goes, they can't do this, it's inventory. And she says, well, that doesn't really matter today now, does it? And she said, get a mop. And then we all start mopping up. And then the Prime Minister comes in and we sit, and he walks in and he goes, and I'm like, what do you want? You want a coffee and a donut? And he goes, well, I'm off the sugar. And I said, you know what? You're my 7th Prime Minister. Can I give you some advice? And he said, yes, what? And I said, eat the friggin' donut.
And look how it worked out.
And it worked out.
I'm so excited to read the book. I'm so excited that you came out tonight. I'm so proud of you, man, for the success of Son of a Critch after reading that book. And thank you so much for coming, man. It means the world that you came out tonight.
Thank you. Thank everybody. And thank Tom Power. Tom Power. Look at him. Now, ladies and gentlemen, can I say something? I think it's time he moved home, don't you? I lives here, Doyle lives here, Hocko lives here, Mercer lives here. Boy, a GD house power.
I'm looking forward to the down payment from you, Mark. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mark Critch, everybody. Give him a round.
Tom Power.
Please welcome Alan Doyle and Shanneyganock performing the St. John's Waltz.
Come join us, Tom. Tom, come join us. Come join us. Make some noise for Tom Power on the guitar, everybody. Tom Power on the guitar. Nothing wrong with waltzing in the aisles at the Arts and Culture Center in St. John's. All right, here we go. And a 1, 2, 3, up. Lights are gleaming and the evening is still dark, and the seagulls are all dreaming seagull dreams on Amherst Rock, and the mist is slowly drifting as the storefront lights grow dim, and the moon is gently lifted as the last ship is coming in, and all the sailors got a story. Some are true when some are false, and they're always wrecked, and they're up on the deck, and they're dancing the St. John's Waltz. Come on, Chris.
We've had a share of history. We've seen nations come and go. We've seen battles rage over land and stage for 100 years or more. For glory or for freedom, or for country or for king, or the graves where men are sleeping, where the graves men lie sleeping. All the 9 to 5 survived the day with the sigh and a dose of salt. They're parking their cars and packing the bars, dancing the St. John's waltz.
And all the planes fill the skyway, and all the planes roll swift and free. So leave the wayward free to wander, leave the restless free to roam. And if it's rocks in the bay, if it's all cliche, then you'll find your way back home. So don't question or inquire what's been gained and what's been lost. In a world of romance, don't miss out on the chance to be dancing the St. John's waltz. In a world of romance, don't miss out on the chance to be dancing the St. John's waltz.
Make some noise for Tom Power and everybody at Q, everybody.
Alan Doyle and Shanneyganock, everybody. Give him a round of applause.